For the first time in history, a jury looked two of the most powerful corporations on Earth directly in the eye and delivered a stunning verdict. Meta and Google, the tech titans behind Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, were found legally responsible for destroying a teenager's mental health. This single decision could reshape the internet forever. Welcome to Court Decoded. Today we examine the landmark California verdict that sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley and what it means for every family with a child online. The story begins with an ordinary American teenager, a young person whose life became consumed by the glowing screens in their hands. What started as innocent social media use spiraled into something far darker. Hours turned into entire days lost scrolling through endless feeds. Sleep vanished, anxiety took root, depression followed. The teenager became trapped in a cycle of comparison, validation seeking, and algorithmic manipulation designed by some of the world's most sophisticated engineers. Their mental health deteriorated so severely that it required professional intervention. But this family decided that suffering in silence was no longer an option. They chose to fight back, not just for their child, but for millions of families facing the same invisible enemy. Their battleground would be a California courtroom, and their opponents would be two of the wealthiest corporations in human history. The family's legal team faced a challenge that had defeated countless attorneys before them. Social media companies had long enjoyed near-total legal immunity, shielded by Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, a law that protects platforms from liability for user-generated content. But these lawyers pursued a different strategy. They argued this case wasn't about content at all. It was about the product itself. The attorneys framed social media platforms as defectively designed products, engineered specifically to be addictive, particularly to developing teenage brains. They gathered evidence showing how features like infinite scroll, push notifications, and recommendation algorithms were deliberately crafted to maximize engagement regardless of psychological harm. Internal documents would reveal that these companies knew their products damaged young users and chose profit over protection. The case was built on product liability law, the same legal framework used against tobacco companies and pharmaceutical manufacturers. Central to the prosecution's case was the algorithm, the invisible code that decides what billions of people see every moment of every day. Expert witnesses explained to the jury how these systems work. The algorithms learn what captures attention and delivers more of it, regardless of whether that content is harmful, disturbing, or psychologically damaging. For teenagers already struggling with body image, the algorithm serves more content about extreme dieting. For those experiencing depression, it surfaces more negative and hopeless material. The system is designed without guardrails for vulnerable users. Internal research from these companies, some leaked by whistleblowers, demonstrated that executives understood their platform's harmful effects on teenagers. Studies conducted by the companies themselves showed alarming rates of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation among young users. Research that was buried rather than acted upon. The jury would see this evidence and understand a crucial truth. This was not accidental harm. It was designed. Meta and Google assembled elite legal teams armed with decades of precedent in their favor. Their defense rested on several key arguments. First, they invoked Section 230, claiming immunity for any content-related harm. Second, they argued personal responsibility, that users and parents, not platforms, bear responsibility for usage habits. Third, they contended that their products provide immense social benefit, connecting people worldwide and enabling free expression. The defense attorneys portrayed the plaintiff's case as an attempt to blame technology for complex mental health issues, with many contributing factors. They presented their own experts who testified that establishing direct causation between social media use and specific mental health outcomes is scientifically challenging. Family environment, genetics, school pressures, and countless other factors influence teenage mental health. Singling out social media, they argued, was legally and scientifically unsound. The corporations emphasized their ongoing efforts to implement safety features and parental controls. The turning point came through testimony that humanized the statistics. Mental health professionals detailed the teenagers' psychological deterioration. connecting it directly to documented social media usage patterns. They explained how the developing adolescent brain is uniquely vulnerable to the reward mechanisms built into these platforms, the same dopamine-triggering systems used in slot machines. Former tech industry employees took the stand to explain how engagement metrics drove every design decision. Features were tested and refined, not for user well-being, but for maximum time on platform. One witness described internal meetings where concerns about teenage mental health were raised and dismissed because addressing them would reduce engagement numbers. Perhaps most damaging was the presentation of internal communications. Emails and documents showing that company leadership understood the harm being caused. They had the data, they had the warnings, they made calculated business decisions to continue unchanged. The jury listened as the human cost of those decisions was laid bare. After weeks of testimony, the case went to the jury. 12 ordinary Californians were asked to decide something extraordinary: whether the world's most powerful technology companies could be held liable for the mental health of a teenager. The deliberations stretched over multiple days as jurors weighed complex questions. Had the plaintiff proven that the platforms were defectively designed? Was there sufficient evidence of causation between product use and psychological harm? Did the company's knowledge of potential harm create liability? Legal observers noted this jury was essentially being asked to decide whether social media should be treated like any other consumer product, subject to the same safety standards as cars, pharmaceuticals, or children's toys. Inside that deliberation room, the future of technology regulation hung in the balance. The verdict would either reinforce big tech's legal fortress or blast the first significant hole in its walls. When the jury returned, the courtroom fell silent. The forepersons stood and delivered a verdict that would echo through Silicon Valley and beyond. Liable. Both Meta and Google were found legally responsible for the teenagers' mental health harm. The jury concluded that these platforms were defectively designed products that caused foreseeable damage to a vulnerable user. This was not about punishing speech or content. This was about holding corporations accountable for deliberately engineering addictive, harmful products and marketing them to children. The plaintiff's family embraced as the weight of their years-long fight culminated in validation. Outside the courtroom, legal experts immediately recognized the significance. This verdict established precedent that could open the floodgates to similar lawsuits nationwide. Hundreds of cases already pending in courts across America suddenly had a roadmap to victory. Big tech's legal shield had been pierced. The ripple effects of this verdict extend far beyond one California courtroom. Legal analysts predict a wave of similar lawsuits, potentially forcing fundamental changes in how social media platforms operate. Companies may be compelled to redesign their products with safety as a priority rather than an afterthought. Features specifically targeting young users could face heightened scrutiny and potential prohibition. Age verification systems might become mandatory rather than optional. Algorithmic transparency could be required by future regulations, citing this verdict as evidence of harm. For parents, this case provides both warning and hope. Warning about the documented dangers of unrestricted social media access for teenagers, and hope that the legal system can provide accountability. The technology industry is already responding, with some companies announcing new youth safety initiatives in the verdict's wake. Whether these represent genuine change or mere public relations remains to be seen. What is certain is that the era of absolute legal immunity for social media harm has ended. This California jury delivered more than a verdict. They delivered a message. For years, big tech operated under the assumption that legal accountability for user harm was someone else's problem. That assumption has been shattered. Meta and Google now face not only this judgment, but the prospect of countless similar cases armed with the same legal strategy. The lesson here transcends social media. When corporations design products they know cause harm, when they possess internal research documenting that harm, and when they choose profit over protection, the law can reach them. Product liability exists precisely for moments like these. Parents now have legal precedent affirming what they've long suspected. These platforms were never designed with children's well-being in mind. The courthouse doors are open, and Big Tech's day of reckoning may have finally arrived. If you found this landmark case fascinating, subscribe to Court Decoded for more legal breakdowns that matter. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a verdict that shapes our world. Share this video with any parent who needs to see it.